you end up in a space where you touch on that underlying non-duality, and there's just oneness. You're just with it, and you get it. When you're in that space, you just understand it fully.
And I do have a very early memory of being out of my body in the hospital, watching them, trying to turn me upside down, trying to, bring me back to life.
Consciousness is inherent within everything, and from the animate to the inanimate. And
your heart is giving off a massive electromagnetic field that's pulsing out from your body. They can pick it up between 12 to 15 feet, but we know it must go on further.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Control Your Energy podcast. Today I'm with my very good friend Mr. Dryw Wyvern, and we take a deep dive into exploring the nature of the mind, consciousness and reality. Hope you enjoy. I suppose because we haven't put anything out there already, maybe it's a good idea to, as you say, start at the beginning. So with you, where would you say it all started, this stuff, getting into
life, the universe and everything?
Well,
we talking just my own personal.
I suppose what I'm talking about really is like the spiritual path. I mean, I know I have, but I know you have, and I know your stories, but other people don't. So I think it'd be good to kind of just go back to early doors. Yeah, the beginning. When did you realise it was all? There was something bigger to it and whatever.
Well, I would say the dawn of my experience was being born.
Yeah,
being born dead with the cord wrapped around my neck, and they had to bring me back to life. And I do have a very early memory of being out of my body in the hospital, watching them, trying to turn me upside down, trying to, bring me back to life. And I remember it vividly. That's my first vivid memory. Didn't have any emotional attachment to it at the time. It was just watching it. And
from a third party sort of perspective.
Yeah, just sitting outside and watching all that, happening. You know what I mean? And sort of like they had to bring me back to life because I was dead. So I mean, that's sort of like when I think about that, that's my first strongest memory.
Which straight from birth, you've come in with something that's an out of body experience, if you like. Literally came out of a body and you're out of body.
Yeah, not scary or anything like that. But I suppose at that early age you wouldn't have the emotional or understanding of
but
that.
It's kind of highly unusual, isn't it, to have sort of like have any recollection of that period for most people. So, that period between, say, 1 and 2 is usually sort of just a blank, isn't it? Yeah. So to have had that, it's almost as though there's something, it's like your awareness was there, from a different perspective from that which was in the body, which you've just inhabited.
Without a critical state of mind to it as well, which is just
observance.
Yeah, looking at it from now, I think, oh, wow, you know what I mean? But at the time, no critical state of mind developed, that, as you would do as you get older. You get that sort of, you criticise it, don't you? You got a critical
question
thinking about it. Whereas then it was just, whoa, this is...
When did you first realise that you remembered that memory? When you could reflect on it and think, oh, I actually remember that from when I was born.
Early as probably 7 months old, sat in on the floor in one of the little baby buggy things. Yeah. In a house that we've well, obviously I was born, the first house we were in. We moved from there at 10 months. But I can remember that memory at about that age.
Yeah. And you've always just
what was going on around me as well at the time, even at that age. Well, right the way through, really, even at the age of 3, I can remember again going to Switzerland. And at the age of 3, being knocked down the side of a mountain by my uncle, and literally going over and being knocked out. But I remember the whole thing vividly, as if it happened, like yesterday.
That's crazy, isn't it? So you've got like a, solid recollection of those really early years then. Yeah. And when would you say, like for you then, it started to become
I would say 7.
Yeah.
At 7 years old.
That's when you started to realise there's something a little bit more to...
Yeah, well, I had more of an awareness of it then. You know what I mean? It was like by that time you've developed a sort of critical consciousness, haven't you? So, then I would begin to question it more, and what's this all about? Wanting to know more and deepen it, and then could never get rid of that out of my personality.
That's it. It's
then
kind
on.
of. It seems like it's just there, doesn't it? That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same for me, really. In that, like, I always looked at things a little bit differently than most people I know. So, like, when I was, like, my mum tells me stories. I don't actually remember it too much, but she says when I was like, 2 or 3, I was talking to her about, esoteric concepts like reincarnation and that sort of thing. I mean, where's that come from in a little kid? I don't know. It's just
Well, if you've never, your parents never spoke to you about it, did they?
Yeah. No.
So
so it comes from
within.
Yeah. So that part of your persona, I suppose, is there probably from day one, isn't it? And I was always sort of into, like you, where I'm pretty sure as well, you're kind of into paranormally stuff and that sort of thing as you're a kid growing up, find that sort of stuff really interesting. And it's just that curiosity about stuff that's beyond the normal waking physical experience of most people, isn't it? I was into like horror films and all that. I know that's like just something that's out there, but I think it was the tinge that it's something beyond normal reality, the fact that there could be
something else,
something other,
more than
the other. It's being aware of the other, isn't it, from a very early age. And I think we both shared that type of experience in childhood.
Do you think everyone has that though?
I think everyone's got their stories. So even if people aren't into sort of the spiritual concepts or the ideas of something beyond and all of that, I think everyone's got their stories of things that are slightly beyond normal physical reality. Yeah. But a lot of people, I think, just because it's kind of sidelined in normal society, isn't it? A lot of this stuff, for whatever reason, it's sidelined, and therefore people kind of they almost re-question their own experiences, and they kind of get pushed to the back of their mind as just something weird that happened or whatever. But I think a lot of people have got them, haven't they? Yeah, everyone's got their tales. You start talking about a haunted house or that sort of thing. Everyone's got a little tale of something that's happened to them throughout their life, haven't they? Some weird thing that's gone bump in the night or whatever.
Well, you look at that and you think, well, everyone has that element to their consciousness. So it's obviously a part of your being, isn't it? It's got to be a part of everyone's being, although a lot of people tend to quash it. Society tends to quash it. Or if it doesn't quash it entirely, you've got to follow the narrative of the religion of the day. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's another thing. It's also, although everyone quashes it and pushes it aside, it's also almost like a burning question of everyone, isn't it? Because, our worlds and our societies are so driven by spiritual concepts, religions. Religions are the things that most of the wars are fought over and all of that sort of stuff, cultural stuff. But all of those religions at their base, what they're doing is they're trying to explore what happens in the thereafter, what happens after this life. It's all about that, and they're arguing about that. So there's this sort of like underlying want to understand what is beyond just this place we just find ourselves in when we're sort of born and raised. There's always that question. I think everyone has got that question. That's why it's such a big part of our modern
element of
society. But weirdly, at the same time, we don't investigate it as a whole, as a collective. It's not given anywhere near the amount of
they do in terms of religion, don't they?
In terms of religion, religions have sort of been changed to almost be like a control system, haven't they?
Yeah. The other thing is, with religion, people will believe in an invisible
source,
spirit, but then you could talk about spirits, somebody dead spirit, and then I don't believe in all that. You can believe in a sky fairy.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like it can sort of like split them apart.
Yeah.
Which is silly, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. But there's that sort of, so there's kind of like a universal belief in it, but a universal disbelief in it at the same time, isn't there?
I think what some of these things, they're like they're very trapped in the narrative that they give, and you can't break free of them.
Yeah.
Religion, can you? So you've got to stay within that narrative. But and then they'll take away the idea of science has no relationship to that, but it does, doesn't it? It's pointing to the same thing. It's still searching for something else, something deeper, something more.
Yeah.
So it's doing the same thing. And when you think about the structure of the universe, the very elemental source of what we come from is stardust. Well, no, beyond that, sorry, right from the very superheated gases. No, let's go beyond that. Let's go right back to the very subatomic particles right at the very beginning of time that make up the atoms, and the atoms that make up the molecules, and the molecules that make up the cells, and everything else.
And as you know, we've discussed many a time that's got to have intelligence like within it, hasn't it? Consciousness
It's
or
searching,
something within
isn't
it which pulls it all together in the first place.
It's searching and making relationships with one another in order to bring about different aspects of creation.
Yeah.
You know, why do you get an oxygen atom come together with a hydrogen atom to produce water? What's its affinity? Why does it do that? And in that, without water, without air and so on, all those things, we don't have living beings, do we?
No.
Although there was conscious awareness still within those things, we wouldn't have conscious human beings, or even trees, or elephants, or fish, or all the myriad.
It's a finely balanced sort of ecosystem, isn't it? Where everything has an effect on the other. It's immensely intelligent. Yeah. It's ridiculously intelligent. It's almost bypassed as though, it's just what happened. It's just physics. It's just science, whatever. And yeah, there's science to it, and you can use science to explain, how this or how that happens. But what it never explains is what part of the acorn is intelligent that says, "I'll grow into an oak tree," or whatever.
Doesn't it? The very everything's information. Everything. Even information inside that acorn, like you just said, there's information in there that tells it to grow. Where does that information come from to do that?
How does it know when it's under the earth that sunlight's beaming down on it and it should draw itself upwards?
It's got to draw up the minerals and everything else from the earth. It's intelligence. Yeah. It's not the same as art. It's different. It's still awareness and consciousness, isn't it?
Yeah.
It all is. Every single thing you can...
Everything. Yeah.
The very air that's around you it's alive.
Absolutely, yeah.
You think of all that the ions, the positive and the negative ions. Breathe in oxygen. What do you do? Okay, you breathe in that oxygen, and I think it's a negatively charged ion of oxygen is exchanged with the carbon dioxide from your blood. They change over and exchange with one another. Mm-hmm. It's an electrical, electromagnetic
process.
What's the word? Process, being fed into your body. So the very oxygen you're breathing is alive and filled with energy. It has awareness and information of its own. You have to take on the structure of that information into your body in order for this physicality to work.
And how many bodies has that air already passed through is another thing, isn't it? I mean, I've thought about that before. It's, you're wandering through a crowded place and someone's blasting a vape cloud around or whatever. But you see how far that breath travels, don't you? And that's happening, forget the vape, that's happening with every breath of every person that's walking through the town. It's like that sort of all-pervading thing. It's recycled. I mean, even COVID will tell you that, the amount of bodies that
the physical. Let's move on to what we call the non-physical then. Yeah. Your body, right? Every single one of your cells, every single one of your atoms, they're all giving off energy, aren't they? An electromagnetic field. That in turn is all the same with your blood, your corpuscles. They're spinning around in your body, taking on oxygen, giving off an electromagnetic field. Your heart is giving off a massive electromagnetic field that's pulsing out from your body. They can pick it up between 12 to 15 feet, but we know it must go on further. Any information that's given out, radio or electromagnetic, travels off out into the universe. So that field is constantly emitting from you, you and I, from every single cell of our body. So, and it's interacting. without a shadow of a doubt. And we know that we are, there are areas, parts of your body, like even your pineal gland, that is very sensitive to electromagnetic fields, to electromagnetic fields of the planet, to the moon, and so on. Very subtle electromagnetic. We pick up our day-to-day happenings from that information, from the sunlight, from the moon, and everything else. You know, we're constantly that.
We're part of it, aren't we? I think there's that. Everything's interconnected. I suppose it is like what we've. It's panpsychism, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you believe that consciousness is inherent within everything, and from the animate to the inanimate, and I believe that. I believe that to be the case. I mean, you talk about this table's inanimate, but it has to have something with it. It's still got a load of atoms and whatnot that are basically vibrating energy.
Yeah.
And we know that. That's not just some woo-woo thing. That's science. There's vibrating energy as an atom. How they're pulled together to create what we'd call this table has been created by thought. Thought has held it together in this certain way. So it's not like, as you say, in the same way as we've got intelligence, in the same way as a tree isn't intelligent in the same way we are, but there is an underlying something within it which allows it. And it's also the sort of, when you touch something, interact with something that is inanimate, so I can tap that table, there's a response to that. I can feel that doing that. So my consciousness feels me tapping that object and whatnot. So there's some sort of two-way information transfer, isn't there? Even from just doing something as simple as that. So, what's it like to be a rock? God knows, who knows? But I mean, it's got some form of, something has formed it to the way that it is. And I believe the inherence of consciousness within all matter, because I believe it's our interaction, or we're embodied consciousness within this material world, aren't we? So we've got a material suit in which we can interact within this world, which is the body, isn't it? Yeah.
But your thoughts, when you talk about thoughts, what are they?
I don't know, but there's like a constant interplay, isn't there, between. This is the thing that sort of like gets glossed over in most people's minds, is that there's not a non-physical. Well, there's a non-physical at play all the time, and there's an interaction between us and the non-physical all the time. So, for example, if someone's thinking about what I'm saying now, the fact that thought is a non-physical thing, those thoughts are happening somewhere beyond the physical.
Yeah.
Even those thoughts about what I'm saying are happening somewhere non-physically. If you sit there and reflect on that, you can see that everything that we do, every action is driven first by something that's occurred non-physically. But we sort of like, if we didn't have that, then we'd all just be, what would we be?
Like your dreams, what are they? Not you're actually existing in a non-physical realm.
Yeah.
Literally, you might be existing in it with, you could say, I don't know, your thoughts. But then what are your thoughts? You could say, well, your thoughts are just electromagnetic impulses. Well, then you must be electrical magnetic impulses then. And you're living in another reality, seeing without eyes, hearing without ears, speaking without a mouth, and physically experiencing things in that dream world without any of your physical hands and everything else. You can have all that. So, and to tell it to somebody that's not real, well, if it's not real, how could you be experiencing it then?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not this reality, but it is a reality.
Yeah.
And when they talk about the alternate reality, it is. It is an alternate reality, and you go to live in it every night.
Yeah.
Several different alternate realities usually.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We get drawn into that space, like it or not. You will go into that space. It's like, we are pulled in there after we've done our stint in the physical world for a bit. Like it or not, you're going to fall asleep, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then it's the big mystery sleep, isn't it? What's it for? Well, it's like almost as though, my philosophy, the way I look at it, is that from outside we are projecting in here, and then when we go to sleep, we go back into what we are. rather than the other way round, rather than the fact we stem from here and then go out into that world. I think that's where we're, that unconscious, that non-physical place is where our consciousness lives. Every thought we have, even what we're talking about now, where that's coming from is coming from a space of non-physicality.
Well, yeah, because you might not be in a dream, but let's look at imagination. If I say to you, can you remember what your car looks like? You get an image of your car, okay, so it's not as full strength as it would be in a lucid dream or a vision, but you can see it. So what is that? That's non-physical, isn't it?
Yeah, non-physical sight. Yeah.
What was that? You could say that an impulse happened in my brain, some kind of electrical impulse, but where did that originate from?
Yeah, I mean, and again, what you're saying there has just made me think about the general scientific paradigm, which, materialistic reductionism, which is that all conscious processes stem from the physical matter of the brain and our brain processes. I listened to a guy speaking about this online the other day, actually. He was a neurologist or neuroscientist or something like that. And he's talking about dreams, and he's quite, open as regards to most people are. He's put a lot of study into doing that, studying dreams particularly, which is quite novel for a neuroscientist to have that as a key area.
It's good there are people.
And it was good. It was good that he was open, but when it came down to it, his what he said about it was that ultimately these are brain processes. He said, we know this for a fact. And it was the fact that he said, we know this for a fact. He goes, they're not coming from some other world. We know this for a fact. And that kind of put me off straight away, because I thought, he had interest in lucid dreams, so he's aware of lucid dreams and stuff like that. But he hadn't had any himself, but he was aware that they did exist. He was aware of the scientific proof that they exist, and so on and so on. But when he came out with that statement, I kind of thought, ooh, because when you have experienced it, there's a different way you look at it, don't you? You look at it more that those chemical reactions that you can test with your EEG machines and whatever else on the brain, with the old sticky doobies and all that. You can see those reactions and those chemicals taking place and this movement and that movement, but they believe, or the medical establishment believe, that those processes just happen, and that is you experiencing these other worlds or whatever. Whilst we would say that you are experiencing those other worlds, and because you are experiencing those other worlds, they have a chemical reaction within the brain, not the other way around. So consciousness being prime, materialism or matter being a product of that, rather than the other way around.
What were those neurochemicals made of?
Yeah, what are they made of? Yeah.
And made of the atoms. What are the atoms made of again? Made of subatomic particles. What are those subatomic particles but just vibrational fields?
Yeah.
It all comes from that vibration field. It's all around, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a field of information.
Yeah.
And we're almost like an antenna, in a way, of picking up the information that surrounds us.
Yeah.
We are an antenna.
A transceiver, yes. We just receive that.
I'm picking up the information from you when you're speaking to me, or we're talking all the infections, everything you're doing. I'm still an antenna, in a way, of picking up all the information that's around me.
Yep.
And what is that thing? Again,
it's non-physical.
It's all non-physical, every single bit of it.
So the fact that there is this interplay with non-physical that's continuously there, but it's almost like it's the wood for the trees thing, isn't it? It's because it's so inherent within our conscious experience, we don't even realise it's there. So there's all this non-physical stuff going on all the time, but people do find it a little bit out there, the idea of being able to move into that space, being able to carry a conscious awareness into that space. It's almost like it's an alien concept. And it's not until you have one of those experiences that you can be like, whoa, suddenly the eyes are opened, aren't they? And it's like, shit, other dimensions do exist.
I like to think of the non-physicality. Well, physicality, non-physicality. Not as separate things, but very much almost like a condensate. You know, when they talk about this, we're a Higgs boson condensate, basically. That's what we are. More like the vortex. That at that far end, it's a material, almost like a gas, until it draws itself together, and as it comes down, tighter and tighter and tighter, into almost like a physical thing. You take a whirlwind or a whirlpool, at its very point, it's hard as that wall. Yet all it is just air.
Yeah. Condensed down into matter.
And if we go right back at the beginning, that's the Higgs boson. If that's the God particle they talk about, what we are is a Higgs boson condensate. That's what we are.
Well, that's interesting as well, though, isn't it? Because you talk about the Higgs boson particle and all that, and they were looking for that for a long time. Again, if you go down the quantum level of things, you could say the seeking was what created the particle. Because, we know that observation, through the old double slit experiment and all of that observation changes reality. Yeah. And therefore, if you're looking, thousands of scientists are looking, they're building machines and whatever else to look. Eventually, perhaps something appears, and maybe that's what that is.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But it's obviously sets of laws, mathematical, like scientific laws on which all them things decide to be created around. Because you don't get, well, yeah, you do, don't you? I was thinking a hydrogen atom and a oxygen atom, sometimes a hydrogen atom might decide to bind to another one.
And it creates an element of some form or
something else, yeah. So things do change and, according to their resonance with one another. What decides that?
Consciousness itself is all you can conclude, really, isn't it? It just decides what it wants to do. There's a constant sort of like searching, growing, looking for experience.
I mean, if it's taken all that time for that, if we say the pre-aware ancestor, as I was saying, that very thing in the very beginning, that was seeking for greater and greater awareness, that it's been searching. If it wasn't, it wouldn't have bothered to put together a human being sat here, a conscious human being, able to look back at itself, the eyes of the universe looking back at itself. Do you know what I mean? It's
well, that's duality and non-duality, isn't it? And if there were just the non-dual, I mean, we've experienced states of that. I know you have, and I know I have, where you just reach those little moments in either a deep meditation or an out-of-body experience, or maybe a psychedelic state or whatever it is, where you end up in a space where you touch on that underlying non-duality, and there is just oneness. You're just with it, and you get it. When you're in that space, you just understand it fully. But without that, or in order to have anything other than that, there has to be duality. So it creates that observer and observed sort of illusion that we're part of it, but you have to be separate from something in order for there to be other.
Yeah.
And otherwise there's nothing. There is just pure awareness within the field. And that's great. And it is nice to, more than nice, it's sort of like heavenly almost to be in that state, isn't it? When you reach it.
I think that's what it is.
But in order for experience to exist, there has to be duality, doesn't there?
Yeah.
There has to be duality. There has to be separation. Because I can't experience, as consciousness itself, I can't experience picking up a glass of water and holding it in my hand if there's not separation for object-subject.
Yeah, or embodiment, as I say.
Yeah.
Because when you're disembodied, obviously you can't do that, can you?
No. But we carry that over, don't we? So that sort of non-duality, we carry that over into the immediate realm beyond here, which is, you call it the astral, you call it the dream world, whatever you want to call it, the non-physical space which is closest to this one. So when we project out, we move straight into that space, the non-physical world which is closest to this one. That's why if you have an out-of-body experience, consciously moving into that space, you generally appear in the same spot of a non-physical environment, which is a copy of where you are. So generally your bedroom, or if you're out meditating somewhere, it may be there. but you move into that space first, don't you? And then sort of deeper you move into the experience, the more it seems to be able to be modulated and altered and stuff like that. So I mean, there's this. Listen to a lot of stuff, different people's perspectives and whatever else, and there's a sort of general sort of view, it seems anyway, that a lucid dream is in some way lesser than an out of body experience or something like that. But then on the same token, you've got people who will say, and I agree with, the deeper you go, the more thought responsive the environments become. So the deeper you go, if the more thought responsive the environments become, that would mean that a lucid dream is perhaps deeper into the space than the initial OBE. So if you're into a space which is more thought responsive and it's more subtle and you can change things more with just thought alone, it would seem that you're already deeper in. And I'll tell you why I would suggest that as well, is that when you travel consciously into an OBE, you come out of your body, you move into that initial environment, which is the same as the physical. The further in you go away from your physical surroundings, away from the body and whatever else into that experience, the more it becomes pretty much like a lucid dream, same. But you've had no break in the awareness as you've crossed over. Whilst if you have a lucid dream, you're already asleep, you're already dreaming, so you're already further in, and then something's triggered you and you've woke up within it. So then you're in that space which is perhaps more thought responsive. So theorizing against the grain of a lot of stuff, but perhaps that's already deeper within the space. That's what I feel about it anyway. And it's not to say one's better than the other, because they're just different entry points as far as I'm concerned as to how you get there. But one, I would say you're already asleep. You've already gone through that process. You've already stepped further into the non-physical environment, if you like. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me. I mean, it's like, that's a good way of explaining it. I think the experience of it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because obviously there's what we move into when we move into that that space, whether it's straight direct from waking, OBE stuff, or whether it's from a trigger later on in a lucid dream, we are we're moving into still form-based environment. So a form-based environment is an environment like this where there's me and this stuff, and I can interact with that stuff and I can interact with those other people, and it's all very familiar, and it's much like it is here where we just, can interact with things and people and places. Different rules, obviously. In there you can fly or just, wander through a wall or something like that. Those sorts of things you can do. But ultimately, those spaces closest to here are still form-based, aren't they? And then beyond that, one would think you're getting closer to the substructure. And the substructure beyond that is beyond
thought and beyond embodiment.
And beyond form.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a different space altogether. And in that space is where you find those non-duality spaces that we spoke about, that space where you can connect to something that is beyond.
Like the void, if you like.
The void, yeah.
When you think about that, you could talk about the beginning of the universe as being maybe like a voice, and then there was light, like awareness, consciousness, whatever, and the universe becoming aware of itself, if you like. That's happening all the time, not just a billions of years past. It's happening every single atom. Right at this moment, it's blinking in and out of existence. One minute they're there, and then they're not there.
Yeah.
Look at them.
Yeah,
And
they
not
can be
only
in two
that-
places at once.
Yep, and not only that, people thinking about the experiment actually affects the experiment. So it's affecting the very substrata of the universe. Thought actually affects the substrata of the universe. Actually does that. So I was going somewhere with that, and I completely lost my track because of the camera going. But yeah, but to get onto the subject of hetep or heaven or samadhi or whatever you want to call it, that state of consciousness which is just free to the bounds of all limitation, even thought itself, is literally a void, but it's still aware.
Yeah, it's like,
aware of just being conscious and nothing else. That's it. There is just a conscious awareness. That's it. Do you know what I mean? And if it's existing in me, that must exist in the very atoms that I'm made up of.
yeah,
How could I experience if it didn't somehow exist or grow out of even my brain cells or wherever? I couldn't experience it otherwise, could I?
no.
It has to be part and parcel of what you are.
Yeah, I mean, if you, like as you say, if you can experience it, then it's real, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Somewhere on some level of consciousness, if it's experienced, then
I understand if there's a blue elephant with three trunks. Yes, okay, not in this reality unless I draw one and put on a piece of paper or make one out of something. But the reality is, I'm actually seeing that. It's real.
Yeah.
And if those thoughts or whatever, even if they're electromagnetic fields in my brain, are still made up of those subatomic particles, and I fashion them with a thought.
Yeah. It's like thought is the moulder of these things, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can mould stuff, mould the reality.
But you could say it only comes out of the brain cells. It's a function of all the brain cells coming together. Yeah. But why did they decide to all get together to do that in the first place?
Yeah, that's the missing thing, isn't it?
Do you know what I mean?
There's a Terence McKenna saying, I think I really liked actually, which talks about the scientific overview of life and creation and all of that. And it says, give me one miracle and I will explain it all. And he's, because you talk about the Big Bang, okay, great Big Bang, that's where all matter sprung into existence. But what was there before that? So that's the big miracle in science. The big miracle in science, the Big Bang. After that, we can say, we can explain everything after that. But what we can't explain is what was the basis of that happening in the first place and what was there that created it. So,
well, all these theories are they're just constructs, aren't they? We can change our theories on science. You can change your theories on religion. I mean, there's many bases in religion in terms of our the way we operate with one another or anything else, how we get on and that sort of stuff. And science, again, seeks to do those things. If you're a true scientist, you're not just going to be fixed in one idea, are you? No. You're always seeking for something else.
Yeah, your basis should be truth.
Yeah, it should be beyond the truth. That's what it is. It's the search for truth.
And being open to
great
change.
Awareness.
Open to change your opinion based on new facts.
Yeah. And if you keep that frame of mind, then you're awake, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
The moment you stop doing that, you've gone to sleep. I don't mean
physically gone to sleep, mentally
you've shut down.
Yeah.
Oh, then you're no longer searching anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like, the search is gone. I don't think that's a good thing.
No, not at all.
Life itself is always seeking to grow.
Yeah.
It's always, seeking greater knowledge, seeking understanding. That's what it does.
Yeah.
Just you can't. I think if you put chains on that, I just think you're just destroying life, aren't you? When you do that.
Well, I mean, that's something that sort of constant motion of consciousness is something that it can be understood through, psychedelic vision, for example, is constantly moving, rotating, joining, harmonizing, and in changing in frequency, and all you are is a point of awareness within a mass. So it's different there. You're beyond the form. You're beyond body. There's no body within those spaces. You are just a observer of and a part of. It almost feels like you are a fractal within a fractal sort of world that's constantly moving and constantly changing.
You actually just feel like you are the all. So I know you can't grasp that with this state of mind, but when you do experience it, you are connected with it all, aren't you? It's deep.
Very much so.
You can't say how deep. You can't explain how deep that is. But that to me is the true reality. That for me is that's the essence of it. And I think that no matter where you are in this world, or in your dream world, or anywhere else. That, I think, is the fundamental thing that you should have. You should to be aware and conscious.
Awareness of state is the key, isn't it?
Yeah, and to be that because it's peace, isn't it? It's a cessation of all movement.
Yeah,
I think that's what
yes, nothing moving. Yeah,
what's the term? The term nirvana means nothing moving.
Yeah.
That's what it means. You know what I mean? It's like, and when you're in that state, that is you've transcended. I'm not going to say back in terms of enlightenment. I mean you've transcended normal physical reality. You've transcended that level of reality, and you've moved into another reality which you're existing in.
Yeah.
In your consciousness.
Yeah. And it's like, the death practices, for example, of the ancient Tibetans and whatever else. They had the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Buddha Thodol, and in that space, I was reading about this not long ago, actually. Like where there's the it's remembrance, and that everything we do in order to become aware within those spaces, remembrance. You have to remember that you need to recognise state, and they say that for so many days after the death of one of their people, there would be a number of family members or holy men or whatever they were that would then chant into the ear of the person who's passed away, and the reason for that being to remind them to remember that, to recognise their state, and just in theory, so they say, just the remembrance of that is enough for them to get off the wheel of samsara, the cycle of birth, death and rebirth, because if they can recognise their state while they're in it, they can transcend it. So that's in that particular cultural package. But then there was, I think you're familiar with it as well, like Timothy Leary, Ram Dass and all of that, and Metzner. I think they created the psychedelic book for Book of the Dead. Yeah. And in there's the same sort of reminders, which are, when you go into one of those deep psychedelic states, for example, it's the remembrance of the fact that you are, this is all an illusion. You are the awareness which is sat behind it all. Yep. So if anything goes off and it goes a bit crazy, a bit wild, it's that reminder of yourself, of what you are at your true level. And all of those things are practices, if you like, that when you do that within these out-of-body states, it's just reminding yourself to remain aware. Just that remembrance is the thing that, if you can remember to be aware of state, you do that enough throughout your life when you're practicing throughout your nightly journeys, that you get every night the chance to practice some of that stuff. When you actually do die, if you can just remember to recognise your state, then you can be liberated from all of that which appears to be the illusion that you're going to move into. That's how you're going to move higher to it. And I think there's this sort of I don't think people take on the fact that perhaps maybe we need to, not maybe, I think we do, when we move into those states, is carry on practicing to be aware in order to transcend to somewhere higher than just those immediate surroundings that we move into, that are very much like the physical world.
People think, like I just was saying about the Tibetan thing, people talk about the bardos. They aren't something you just go to after death. You can travel through those now. And I think that is the practice you're meant to do. Yeah. Hence the reason for the dream practices and travelling through those bardos and learning to control those. Just in the same, you got 7 bardos, 7 chakras. They're much like the same thing, aren't they? You got the same thing in the Celtic. You've got the 7 islands of the that they go on the Imrama on their travel to 7 islands. There are 7 cares or 7 castles within another Celtic stream. There's always a similar sort of thing. And it's like disembodiment within the shamanic tradition. When you're it's like you're being chopped up.
Yes.
There are various
dismembered.
There are various parts of you, and you do become dismembered. And the idea is to remember yourself. Yeah. But you're put back together, right? Yeah. At the moment, you're broken. Yeah. All your chakras are out of alignment, or that you're travelling on the bardos and you're lost in different bardos.
And the wrathful deities tearing you shred from shred. Yeah.
It's the same thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Or demons, the 7 deadly sins, or they're all the same. They're just rhetoric. The finger pointing to an ineffable reality. But the trouble is, what everybody else does is they take that finger and they stick it in their own eye, and they go around sticking it in everyone else's without thinking it's not the finger, they're pointing to reality.
Yeah,
Same with religions. All these religions are trying to point to something. I don't deny any religion that the truth was lost.
But those sorts of things are lost people. When something becomes bastardized, if you like, from beyond what it was originally intended for, then that's because lost people are following ways which aren't, under the guise of, so it's not really...
They're worshipping the image.
Yeah.
An image, it doesn't have to be an image, it can be a book of words, can be an image. Thinking that you've trapped the universal in a book is pretty... I've got it here, it's all here. It's in this book, and this is the only way.
And it's trusting that, for some reason, a bloke who wrote something 2,000 years ago has got more knowledge than a bloke who might write something today. I'm not an orthodox religion type person at all, really. I believe in, and I know you do too, in seeking your own answers for things and finding your own way as to... it's the only way to really have...
It's great to listen to the masters who have passed and they've done those practices, and it's useful to do it, but you've still got to find your own way. You've still got to walk it yourself, haven't you? It's just like you can't, go believing in some, as long as I just believe in the name of some deity.
As long as I live a nice life, nice happy life, and I'm good to people and all of that, then I'll be saved afterwards. Doesn't really translate like that. I get the idea, because obviously the more positive you are, the more good, there is in your outlook and the way that you look at life, then obviously that's going to have a better effect on you when all you've got is the non-physical, when you don't have the body to retreat to anymore. Your environment's going to be reflected by your state of mind, and if your state of mind is generally positive, then you'd expect those things to be positive too. But there's a lot of cleansing that needs to be done here, isn't there?
Realizations, I think, more
you pass into those space.
Start from even just an earthly thing, let alone from a universal thing. If people could just understand their relationship just with planet Earth alone, right, and realise that we're all human beings living on this planet, get rid of the idea of religion per se and names. We have some of these religions that say should have no image of God. Well, then there should be no names either. Can one believe that an infinite universal consciousness really cares what you call it? I think it really is more caring about what's in your heart, isn't it? And how we get on and how we look after this planet, because those elements that got to make your body, that air you're breathing, that food you're eating that comes from the earth, that water that you're drinking that makes up that physicality that you are, if you poison it, any of those things, you're poisoning yourself. If we destroy this planet, if this planet is the seed in the universe of consciousness, if there isn't any other planets, I know they believe that, that they can say, well, there might be so many planets in the Goldilocks systems that might have
life intelligent life.
Well, obviously life must have been seeded from somewhere, in this universe, on dust that came from elsewhere, or the elements that got together to produce who we are. So, it's maybe that it is somewhere else. But if it's not, and we are the one planet, if we are the one seed, are we going to let this die in the earth of the universe? Right, okay, are we going to let this die?
Well,
if we just looked after that alone.
I think the thing is, it's not the earth that's going to die. I think the earth will be just fine. It's humanity that would kill itself off and make the conditions such that it can't survive. And if that's the case, then Gaia, if you like, Earth, it'll be just fine. It'll recover. It's a resilient thing. So what we're really talking about is, do human beings have the intelligence to save themselves? And that's questionable, isn't it? As you said before, I'm taking this from things that you've said. Sometimes you can't even agree with yourself,
Exactly.
let alone getting everyone on earth to agree. So it's sort of like, are you going to trump the greed of the massive corporations who are polluting the earth to such a degree and chopping down the rainforest? Are you going to change that in some way by, I don't know, flying a flag for peace? Probably
They're the
not.
loudest voices, aren't they?
It's the driver. We've got a driver which is capitalism, and it's gone out of control a little bit now, hasn't it? I mean, everyone's there to feather their nest, aren't they?
Yeah.
Their own nest. And unfortunately, those that are at the top end of the financial structures in the world don't seem to have the best interests of the planet, at least, at its heart, do they? They have just profit and, sod the rest of it, sort of thing. I mean, it's like almost
It's
like
sad.
it is really, because the main drivers psychologically we know that are utilised by governments and whatever else is fear, because they know that people react to fear. So to keep nations and all the people in that state of constant low-level anxiety, which is what is the main driver politically. They know that. They use social media and whatever else to drive those stories that keep that just low level of social anxiety amongst the... And that, to me, I think is actually a crime against humanity, because...
Evil.
You're talking about steering states of mind, collective consciousness, steering collective consciousness into states of low-level fear at all times in order that they can be controlled in order to reap profit. And those sorts of things, they are a crime against humanity, aren't they?
But it's just demonic in a way, isn't it? It's like those states of... I don't want to say let's embody it in a... there's a demon sat around waiting to jump in,
Yeah.
But there are dark thoughts, dark spirits that... manifesting mankind, usually from their baser urges, like of having to eat, having to procreate, having to keep a roof over your head, all those things. But people go too far then, don't they? It's like, and then, I mean, if we went to Africa, there are places where they haven't got hardly next to nothing, but they're happy.
Yeah.
They're so used to that's where their life, you know what I mean? They sing with one another and they sit around, they share food and they do all those things. Whereas here, people are not happy unless they've got 100,000 likes on YouTube, or it's always they've got to be validated by other
External
people.
things, yeah.
And or they've got those same things. I must have like these things to make me happy, and
100% of the time, I would say, I could be throwing it out there as a percentage, but then again, 99% of statistics are made up. I'd say 100% of the time, I think once objects that are material are achieved or got by somebody, their shine dulls very, very quickly, and they don't bring the happiness that before they had it, they thought they would.
Yeah.
And quite often they're used as band-aids to cover up emptinesses within.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Because it's sort of like, when you're a billionaire, why do you then need to carry on doing more? It's because you're trying to fill a void.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Because you don't have to do anything ever again, but you do, because that's in order to be in the right frame of mind to have got to that stage in the first place. There has to be an emptiness that you're chasing. You want that void filled within you, and then when you get there, you find it's not filled. So then what happens? You need more, and it just keeps going and going and going, and it's a strange psychological thing.
The chasing of that. When I think of that just like...
Well, what it comes down to...
Billions. What do I need with billions?
What it comes down to, I think this is, a truth in that what that is, that urge, it's a call for home. Home is spirit, and we're so disconnected from it that constant chasing to try and get somewhere is you get there and then it's the void's not filled. What do I need? Another billion. You know, I don't know what it is. What do you keep chasing? What it is what you're searching for is something that can't be had in the material world.
Yeah.
It's the non-physical. It's that sense of peace, that sense of happiness, that sense of contentment, that sense of, you know, just feeling.
Yeah. That one with yourself.
Yeah,
and
I'm there. And that you cannot find in the material world.
You can't buy it.
That is an inner search. That's something that you have to, you know, find for yourself.
Doesn't matter how many trillions you've got, you can't buy it.
No, it's an inner search, you know. And if that same sense of needing to chase that could be turned within, so you've got that same motivation, that same drive to find that sense of peace, that sense of oneness. If you can search within for that with the same intensity that you can search outwardly for your $1 billion, then, you know, that it's pointed in the right direction then, you know.
I think that's what they talk about when they're saying they're storing your treasures up in heaven.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Well, none of this we can take with us, can we? You know.
So to me, I can't think of anything more precious than that state of mind when you touch it. You know, to be in that, it's almost like a craving.
Well, that's where it is, isn't it? It's sort of like if you hit those moments, you know, those moments of oneness where you enter that space, then that's when everything's solved.
Yeah.
The problems don't exist anymore.
Yep.
You can see they're an illusion, and even if it's just momentary, where you hit that height of whatever it is, you know, it is oneness. That's the only way to describe it. When you hit that peak in one of those deep states, and you find it, then everything's solved.
Yeah.
Everything is okay.
Yeah.
Everything's all right.
Absolutely.
You know, there's nothing to solve then, in fact. You realise that seeking to solve something is an illusion in itself.
But it's crazy how the mind gets caught up in life and the problems that surround it, and that it's so drawn off to those things that you forget yourself, your true self.
Yeah.
And your true self is that state of consciousness. That who your true self is. That is it.
The true self is the stripping away of all that stands in its way. It's already there. It's the baby mind. So when a baby's there and the baby's brand new to the world, it just looks around and it's just conscious and it's just aware, and sometimes it's just happy, just you know, smiling away or whatever. And it's not thinking about tomorrow. It's not thinking about the work it's got to do. It's not thinking about the problems it's got or anything like that. It's just aware. And it's almost like getting back to that, stripping away all of that stuff and that stands in front of it, that blocks the mind and clouds the vision and everything like that.
It's trying to get back to that, because obviously from talk about baby mind, it's now a sponge, drawing everything around it until it becomes critical. It's learning from all these things outside, these sources of information that are all coming into it and feeding it, and then that becomes almost like the self.
Yeah.
Or the lower self, if you like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you've had a good upbringing, you had somebody who's very quite spiritual, and from an early age, you're brought up eating organic food, maybe, and you've got the right milieu in which to grow.
Love, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, at the end of the day, it's being, you know, that's usually when you get a functional adult, that's usually because they've come, you know, from a place of love, and thankfully most people have. But when you've got dysfunction in the adult, it's usually because there was a lack of love or a neglect or something like that at those very early stages.
And the
when
person
you are,
before had.
Yeah.
And that's where the idea of the sins of the father are visited upon the sons and the daughters afterwards, because they are.
Yeah.
You know, you can't help it. They are. You know, you'll find, you know, in many of those families, the father was like, you know, troublesome, was a wife beater and went in prison and stuff like that. And then his nipper grew up to be the same, and all, you know, all the negatives of him. The child saw it or whatever, or felt fear from his father. All those things, all those, you know, information again. Like you say, you know, you've got like when someone's nurtured properly in love, they do become a far better human being.
Yeah.
You know, and it would be nice if this earth could be filled with people like that.
Yeah.
You know, some people work through. You know, I had negative influences in my childhood. But I try to grow through them, and even now I'm battling with what you'll call demons and all that sort of stuff. The dark spirits that arise of not being able to look at another person and realise that they are a spiritual being. We all are, but sometimes we don't. We shut off, and and it's like, and we feel it.
Yeah.
We shrink when we do that, don't we? We do shrink when we do that.
But those sorts of things, I mean, it all goes back to, again, Buddhist concept, karma, isn't it? And to me, karma or karmic traces and all of that sort of stuff, the modern terminology for it is PTSD, isn't it? It's post-traumatic stress. Yeah. When you're talking about
negative
karma, of course, positive karma on the opposite side of it. But, basically when you've got something that you can think back about that still has an effect on you physically now, that's a karmic trace, isn't it? And those are the sort of things where you need to purify yourself of if you're going to be into those non-physical spaces, because again, it lives there, doesn't it? And building up your positive karma is the opposite of the negative karma, the post-trauma and stuff like that.
They call them samskaras, don't they, in the consciousness, or something like little vrittis, whirlpools of of negative energies.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like that, doesn't it? When you have a negative thought.
Well, they're there, aren't they? Because when you have something that causes trauma early in life, well, not even necessarily early, it can be any time in life, actually, but something that causes trauma, something that therefore makes you have negative cycles of thinking, then those negative cycles of thinking affect how you will then behave and react and whatever else in other circumstances in your life, don't they? And they are, therefore, you are playing out your karma. It's not like the idea of karma, they always, it's very simplified in normal linguistics, isn't it? People talk about, oh, that's karma, that is, because, you laughed when someone fell over and then you fell over a week later and you reap what you sow and all of that sort of stuff. It's not really
that's not what karma
That's very simplified.
Yeah.
And in a practical, real sense, what it is, or trying to cleanse your karma, is trying to resolve those things that have happened in the past that mentally affect you now, and the way that you'll do things, the way you'll react in a certain situation or whatever. You get people who are anxious to go to a party or has got social anxiety or something like that. It's usually related back to something that's happened a long time ago in their lives, perhaps when they were a kid or something. They don't even know why, but that is what it is.
Yeah.
So cleansing those things, digging them out of the unconscious and trying to deal with them, that's what people call shadow work, isn't it?
Yes.
If you dig that out and deal with it.
I've been doing a lot of that lately. I've been working on that, doing shadow work. Definitely got to shine the light on it, haven't you? On your shadow. It's got to come from within, though. It's no good having it above you. It's no good having it below you. It's got to be in here. You got to be the light, and then there's no shadow to cast. But that, to me, when you say be the light, you have to be. That light means awareness.
Yes, the light of awareness.
Shine the light of awareness on those things, and not be. What should I say? You're not trying to repel them. You've just got to be aware, and that is your shield.
Yes. Yeah.
Remaining aware and peaceful.
Yes.
That's your shield.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's not like I've got to try and repel anything. I've just got to just remain in that state of peace, that deep peace, and be aware.
Because if you're aware, then when something negative arises, you can not react to it in the way that you would should you be unconscious.
Or your physical body might react at the time. You might feel it, but you're aware of what's going on. You observe it, and you say, calm. You calm the beast. The beast is. There might be like fear from, somebody's going to attack you, or it might be fear, I didn't eat and I need to eat and I don't care about anybody else, I'm having that food, or, all those things, or procreation, it's just like, I just got to get it off and get rid of it, because I'm feeling that thing. But it's like, they're all necessary functions. One, to feed the body is necessary. Two, procreation is a necessary thing to move the species on. But we get caught up in the negative sides of those, don't we?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're trying to put that higher awareness upon those things, to realise them, watch them, to quell the beast by sending peace.
Yeah.
And that peace is love.
Yeah.
I prefer to call it peace rather than love, because it's like in that sense of peace. It's not like
Yes,
for a
because
lot of people, they see the idea of love as being like a fawning thing between two people. You know, it's that.
yeah,
What's the word I'm looking for? I better not. I'll get hurt. You know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Not unconditional love.
Yeah, it's not about being that vulnerability thing. And instead of peace, there's no vulnerability, is there? If you've got to that point where you're at peace with yourself, there is no vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
You're untouched by it.
Yeah.
Hard to do. It's a lot of work trying to achieve that, and it has to be like you said earlier on, like a person trying to obtain his billions. It has to be like that, doesn't it? That the spiritual pursuit has to be
with the same intensity.
Yeah, with the same intensity. You've got to, define that.
Well, this is another thing. I mean, regards to particularly lucid dreaming out of body experience practice, you have to approach that. If you want regular access to those states, you have to practice with an intensity and a high level of motivation. Yeah. That is the real key to getting regular access to those states. So it's not all about technique, this technique and that technique. It's how much do you want it? You know, because I quite often read things online and stuff where people are, I've been trying astral projection for 3 weeks now and I've had nothing. And it's kind of like, one, how hard are you trying? 3 weeks isn't very long. You know, even if you've been trying for a year, how hard have you been trying? How much focus have you put into it? How much effort have you put into it? You know,
it's the same as doing when people do affirmations, right? Okay, robotic affirmations do not work without the feeling behind it.
Yes, exactly.
And so when you put the feeling in it and you're really feeling it, you're feeling it.
I want this. I'm getting it. You know,
you're creating neural pathways, aren't you? In the very act of doing it, you are actually feeling it. You are actually creating the neural pathways for that.
Yeah,
you're stimulating the neurotransmitters in your body of that state right in that very moment. If you just do something robotic, it's just those words are nothing without the
power of intention behind it. Yeah,
the motion,
the energy in motion. Yeah, absolutely.
Without that, they don't really work, do they? And it's the same with that stuff. When you're doing when you are really emotive about it and you really want it, and your awareness has become focused on it, it's all you think about. Yeah,
it becomes part of your life, doesn't it?
Your energy goes to that, and it's like those very practices that you do are awareness practices. If you lose your awareness of it and your awareness starts going on to other things, the energy goes down in that area,
that even happens within the lucid dream, doesn't it? Yeah. So you're within it, and then you lose your lucidity because you've lost awareness. It's like anything, you know. You're driving down the street and you think, right, I'm going to be really aware as I'm driving here, and you sort of just try and keep your awareness, and you are lucid in that moment. Yeah. And then something happens and someone brakes hard in front of you. Suddenly you're out of it and you're back into, and then you drive off again and you might be daydreaming or take an auto turn the wrong way or whatever it is. You've lost your awareness. You've lost your lucidity in waking life.
The higher centers of your brain. You're not really thinking cerebrally when something like that happens. No. You're thinking out of the lower aspects of your brain, aren't you? You're thinking lower down. Your reticular activating center is suddenly going, oh my God, it's thrown off, send a signal to your kidneys to let off adrenaline. Suddenly your stomach's gone. You have your other brain down here, your stomach brain has suddenly kicked in. And you've come out of your head. You're no longer thinking. It's responded to get you out of the way. Walk across the road. There's a juggernaut coming down the road. What do you think? You don't think cerebrally, do you?
No.
All of a sudden it either thinks run forward, run backwards, and if you suddenly just get caught in the fear, not like a rabbit in the headlights, you get hit by the truck.
Yeah, those are those animal instincts, aren't they? They kick in. That's what they're there for, survival.
Yeah, physical survival. And it doesn't put a cerebral head on it. Those things usually are done when you're at peace and you're quiet, aren't they? When you're aware, when you're being aware. The idea of when you walked across that road, you probably weren't being very aware in the first place when that happened to get knocked over.
Yeah.
It's a bit, trying to keep those higher cerebral centres awake takes energy. And also that physical energy in your body. If you're not feeling too well, or if you haven't eaten properly, you know, so those things do affect you. They affect your mind, don't they? So I think you've got to look after your physicality as well, and your emotionality, and your mentality, and those things have to be pretty much unified if you want to think about thinking from a higher level of.
That's back to the old. Obviously kung fu history again, but mind, body, spirit, the three conflicts, isn't it? Yeah. The three conflicts, the mind, body and the spirit, and it's getting all of those in good order, and then working in harmony with one another, isn't it?
Well, Jing is your basic, if you like, your neurotransmitters and everything of your body, isn't it? That's your Jing. Your Qi is energy that arises from that, and your Shen is your spirit, or your the light of awareness.
Yeah.
You know, that's what
goes back to the same sort of things you were talking about earlier. The old, you know,
see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
The three conflicts.
Yeah.
There's always an element of those three things within. You know, it's key. That what you were talking about earlier? I mean, I'll let you relay it, but it's a fact of sort of trying. It's not actually seeing no evil, it's taking no notice, not getting attached to anything that is of negative state. It's not listening to anything which is of negative, or not allowing it to embed itself within you. You hear it, but you might hear the news and it's all negative, but you don't allow it to take hold. And and then speak, you're not spouting out anything that you've is negative. And those sorts of things, if you keep all of those in unison, then you're keeping the garden of your mind clean of weeds, aren't you?
Yeah. What's the fundamental behind all those? It would have to be peace again, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Which love grows out of, again, that same sort of thing. Compassion and love and everything else all grow out of a state of peace, of not grasping, of being beyond emotionality, aren't you there?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about love. It's not that kind of love is not about. It's not emotionality, is it? It's it's a state of being.
Well, there's in sort of new agey circles and stuff. There's all the love and light type stuff, and it all sounds a little bit we're all hippies and love and light and whatever else. But there's facts, and these are facts, and everyone will know them and understand them and feel them. Is that love feels higher than in the way that it makes you feel, whether it's love for your children, love for a partner, the butterfly love when they're brand new relationship, whatever it is, that type of love, or unconditional love for your dog, or they're the best sort of love you can get, pet or something like that. That's for me, that's kind of like what unconditional love is, what you get from an animal, because there is no expectation on it. No. But that feeling is something that everyone can relate to, and everyone can say it makes you feel good, right? And then there's on the flip side of that, if you take that to the other side, hate, anger, depression, it even makes your body contort when you think about it. And when you think about the love side of things, it opens you up, and when you tune into that energy, it makes you feel good. And anyone who's had lucid dreams, out of body experiences where something negative's come along, and they know how to navigate those experiences, and it is to find that feeling within you and project that feeling of peace, love towards whatever it is that's negative, and it transforms. It works 100% of the time. It always transforms into something positive, because within that positive space of mind, negativity can't exist, because they can't coexist in the same space. So there's very tangible, real sort of I want to say science behind it, but there is a sort of like
science, isn't there?
Anyone can relate to those things, I think, And we talk about higher vibration, higher levels of consciousness. Well, things that make us feel good and make us feel in a higher state of being are higher vibration, you know.
Yeah.
So just breaking these vibration things down, things that make you feel low. Again, it's a saying, you feel low, you feel depressed, you feel negative, you feel sort of like, you know, those sorts of things. They have that feeling to them, that oppressive feeling, don't they? And you can, you know, think about those and feel those energies, because they are energies, because again, they're operating in non-physical. Those ones don't feel good, and they make you feel on the lower end, lower vibration, and the other ones make you feel good. You know, it's high vibration. It's, you know, very simple, really. You know, it's...
I just wish that those sorts of things were taught in schools right from a very early age. You know, but rather than on a normal physical level, if it was taught such that you get your love out into nature, do you know what I mean? Get kids actually experiencing and understanding their relationship with everything from an early age, meditating, not making it religious, because that's beyond religion.
Yeah.
That you know, so just do that. The opening of the heart, feeling your connection with the earth, feeling your connection with the cosmos.
Yeah.
Beyond name, beyond some kind of physical idea of what you think it is, just as it is. Open your eyes and look around and see it. Look in the mirror and see it reflected back at you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If we could just do that, if we could look into the face of another person and realise, I'm you.
Yeah.
I'm just as much you as I am anything else. You know what I mean? If you could teach that at an early age without all the religious
Overtone,
cultural rubbish,
baggage that gets put
and it
onto it,
is. And if people could just move beyond that, if we could, then it would be an enlightenment. You know, it really would. I mean, if people could grow this little seed in the universe, could maybe move out to the stars.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If all our energies moved towards that, making sure every single human being on this planet was fed, that every creature was looked after, that the earth, the very earth, and the trees and everything, you know, the air we breathe, the trees that grow, we're all, you know, our brothers and sisters, and
Yeah.
you know, which it is.
Absolutely.
It's the very thing that helps this physicality to be. You know.
Yeah.
This is the seed on which consciousness grows.
Yeah.
That you're in right now, you know what I mean? Without it, it's like we haven't got the tools to... We're only growing because of the experiences and information we're gathering, and...
Yeah. Yes.
You know, it's just... I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately,
do it.
You know, who knows? I mean, there's the theory, isn't there, that... And whether it's true, I can see the possibility that it is true, that Earth life is a school. You know, it's an education system. It's a place where things are condensed down into solid matter, where thoughts aren't manifested instantly, because, you know, if they were, and we were to move into high vibrational realms where thought manifestation does occur instantaneously, then you don't want that filled with a load of rowdy school kids, if you know what I mean, do you? So...
Absolutely.
That's perhaps what this ground is for. It's to allow us to learn how to control those energies, and then perhaps the gates of heaven will be opened to you.
Heaven's just a state of mind, a place beyond both space and time. Yes. It's a state of peace. And until you're in a state of peace, you can't enter heaven.
Yeah.
Because it's peace itself. You've got to find the peace within. When you reach those states of consciousness, that to me is heaven.
That, for sure.
To live in that state constantly is to live in heaven on earth. In this physical being, to remain in that state and live. Nothing would really matter. Nothing. You could pick up a gun and say, well, just there you go.
Yeah.
If that's what's meant to be, that's what's meant to be.
Well, heaven and hell both operate here.
Yeah.
At all times, you know, they're available to us both now.
Absolutely.
And it's not something you have to wait for the afterlife for.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's plenty of people on this earth who are living in hell right now. And there's plenty of people also, you know, those of, you know, cheery disposition, those people who are just living a happy, contented, peaceful life. They're already in heaven.
You've got to phase into it, haven't you?
Yes.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, yeah. It's
You
all.
phase. You know, you can phase into it, into a hellish realm in your energy, in your mind, mental energy. You can into a hellish realm. You know,
Everyone's got that capacity, but I think it is the fact of having to try and. It's again goes back to awareness of state, because if you're aware of state, you recognise when you fall into those states.
Yeah.
We're not infallible. No one's infallible of falling into those states.
Exactly.
You fall into those states, you recognise it, and you pull
Remembrance.
yourself out. Remembrance. I think perhaps with that we'll
it is.
wrap it up, shall
Yeah,
we? But
absolutely.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Remembrance.
Isn't
That's
that remembrance? Remembering that state of peace that you found in meditation, and that's what it is. Call it meditation. Well, I don't know. Call it trance work. Call it meditation. Call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not really in the name, is it? It's in the state of being. You just got to find that, and you only find it in the quiet.
Hmm.
You know, whenever you just shut everything up, there it is, hidden within. That's where That's where that gold is. That's what that old story, wasn't there? I've told of
Yes.
Where should we hide that special gem? And he said, "Oh, we'll hide it under the sea." And they said, "No, humankind will go to the deep depths of the sea, and they'll discover it. Or we'll hide it out in space then, and discover it." And no, not. He goes, "No, we'll hide it inside in their heart."
Yeah.
And that's true, isn't it? It's like it really is true.
Yeah. And you got to delve inside to uncover it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent point to finish on. Yeah. Great chat as always.
Thank you for the great chat. Oh, I love it. Always.
This is nothing unusual. This is what we do anyway. So it's good to do it and just perhaps put it out there and share it. Yeah. So hope everyone enjoys, and you know, give us a like and subscribe.
Try and make your world magical. That's think magical thoughts. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing negative in it. It's actually good for you. It stimulates your endorphins. It's good. With that, see you all next time.